I was assigned to an Army hospital working in a lab. The backstory to that was that I had worked in a hospital lab during college to pay for college because my parents couldn't afford to send me to school. So I had this job, which was about 32 hours a week, that I worked in a hospital lab doing a variety of different things. They started out having me washing glassware, and eventually ended up being the chief of hematology. And it was kind of a really interesting job, and I enjoyed it. But my first passion was um, field biology. I mean, just plain and simple. And then I got drafted. I got shipped overseas, this time to Germany. I was in a combat unit in the 3rd Infantry Division. I was working in the Signal Corps at the time. And I managed to figure out a way to get myself transferred to the hospital because that got me out of the field. It got me away from trucks and guns and all of that sort of thing, which was not my particular cup of tea. And I was working in the hospital lab, and a couple of doctors, in particular, a pediatrician and a surgeon who happened to be in the hospital pretty much all the time, and mostly at night. When we were on call every 3rd night. We had to spend that night in the hospital, so to take care of the emergency room and to provide laboratory coverage, round the clock. They would come by periodically and talk to me, and eventually they started talking to me about, you need to go into medicine. You need to be a doctor. And I said, no, I'm not really interested. And they just kept it up. Just, it was sort of an incessant conversation. Eventually, they did get into my head, and I had met a guy. His name is Perry Rigby. He's now deceased, but he was he was an adult cancer doctor. He was an adult oncologist, and he persuaded me to come back because I'd met him through a connection at a National Science Foundation. It was really kind of a weird connection. I met with him a few times. He had me come and visit his lab before I got drafted, and he invited me to come back and be a graduate student in his lab. And little did I know at the time that he really had been kind of researching me and asking a bunch of people about me, et cetera, et cetera. What he was trying to do is he was trying to start an MD PhD program, which was brand new, a brand new kind of process in medicine. And he thought that I would be an ideal candidate for that. So he persuaded me to come back as a graduate student. And about 6 months into that, he and some medical students that were working in the lab cornered me in his kitchen, literally, and plied me with beer and convinced me that I needed to go to medical school.
Well, that is usually, most students are really kind of struggling. I've got to take all these tests, and how can I get into medical school? You took a totally different route.
As a matter of fact, a medical student was sitting right over here yesterday, and he was here for clinic. I have medical students that rotate through my clinic, and we were talking about medicine. And he was telling about how he thought about medicine and this, that, and the other thing. And he looked at me and he says, so how did you get into medicine? I said, I didn't choose medicine. Medicine chose me.